The Chief Justice Raymond Zondo this week officially hung up his robes and entered retirement. Zondo was at the helm of the judiciary in 2022, appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa after an illustrious career at lower courts. To reflect on his legacy, I'm joined by Lawson, Naidoo, who is Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Lawson, good to have you on the program this afternoon. Firstly, how would you describe the Chief Justice or outgoing Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's overall impact on South Africa's judiciary, especially during his tenure?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Well, you know, it's been a long stint that the outgoing Chief Justice has had. He has served on the bench for 27 years as the judge of the High Court, then the Labour Court, the Labour Appeal Court, ultimately the Constitutional Court, where his 12-year term has now come to an end. And the last 2 years or so have seen him serve as the Chief Justice, having previously served as the Deputy Chief Justice. So it has been an illustrious career. He's certainly contributed immensely to the jurisprudence, especially, I would say, in matters relating to labour law in the country. He's considered an expert in that field and has given some groundbreaking judgments in that regard. But I suppose, you know, posterity will remember him best for the role he played as the chairperson of the inquiry into state capture. He was someone that we all, as South Africans, got to know, or at least we feel we got to know him very well, appearing on our television screens every day during the 4 years of the State Capture Commission. And I think the manner in which he conducted those hearings, the human face that he brought to it, the levels of empathy, compassion, and at times, you know, incredulity at some of the revelations that came forward before him. He was, you know, dumbfounded as to how some of these things could have happened, and the organs of state did not take the appropriate action. So I think, you know, that earned him the confidence of people. And he, as I say, he brought a human element to the judiciary, and he brought an element of integrity back to it. And I think certainly in the last couple of years as Chief Justice, he really played a role in elevating and restoring our confidence in the judiciary. There's a lot of work still to be done in that regard, however.
I want us to unpack some of your opening responses. What do you consider to be the most significant contributions of Zondo, especially in the realm of constitutional jurisprudence and also legal reform as well?
Yeah, look, he's played an important role, you know, in his time at the Constitutional Court, being part of the court delivering many very critical judgments over the years. But like I say, you know, I think he'll best be remembered for, you know, the huge volume of reports that he produced as chairperson of the inquiry into state capture. That is something that is going to be with us for a long time. And I think we owe it as a nation, you know, to honor his legacy by ensuring that those recommendations are in fact implemented. And as he himself said in this past week, that we need to take the necessary steps to ensure that state capture cannot happen again. And that would be the best tribute that we as South Africans could pay to him.
And in what ways has Zondo's leadership, especially at the Zondo Commission, how has it influenced South Africa's approach, especially to combating corruption, in your view?
Well, I think, you know, you know, the reports will speak for themselves. Ultimately, you know, it's a commission of inquiry. It has no enforcement powers. So it's up to the law enforcement agencies, to the president and the executive, as well as to Parliament, to implement the recommendations that have been made in those reports. And, you know, that's how we can best, you know, fulfill the legacy and, you know, justify the time spent on that inquiry over 4 years. And, you know, there's an awful lot of work to be done in that regard. In regard to the Constitutional Court, I'd say, you know, he had a relatively short time there of just over 2 years, and a few months of that period was actually while he was still wrapping up the work of the State Capture Commission. But I think, you know, he's brought a human face to the judiciary once again. He's restored a bit of trust and respect in the judiciary. And, you know, if one looks again at the role that he's played in the Judicial Service Commission, which is responsible for recommending appointments to the judiciary as well as for investigations into misconduct of judges. He's started a process there, but again, there's an awful lot of work to be done by the incoming Chief Justice Maya.
So Chief Justice Zondo has also been praised for his efforts in promoting gender equality, especially within the judiciary. Can you elaborate on how his initiatives have advanced this cause?
Well, as a judge or even as the Chief Justice, he doesn't have the prerogative to appoint judges, but I think the manner in which he's behaved, he's had a very open policy of recognizing the importance of having a judiciary that reflects the diversity of South Africa and taking whatever steps he could to ensure that that women were appointed as acting judges, giving them the opportunity to then be selected as judges, and opening up that space and really creating it as a norm to say that people from different backgrounds are required in order to make the judiciary properly representative, to ensure trust and respect for the judiciary, and ultimately to strengthen the rule of law, because if we have trust and respect in the judges, we're more likely to respect the outcomes of judicial processes. And we've seen in recent times, incredible attempts to undermine the judiciary. And I think he played a very critical role in ensuring that was challenged.
So Zondo's decisions, including the controversial cannabis judgment, Lawson, I mean, these have sparked diverse reactions. How do you assess the broader implications of his rulings on South African society, but also South Africa's law?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's one can pick on particular judgments and critique them as legal analysts and academics will. But I think when we're looking back at this point in time, and we're looking back at a career of over 27 years in the judiciary, we've got to say that what Chief Justice Zondo has done is he's shown a commitment to the values and principles of the Constitution, recognizing the rights of individuals as enunciated in the Constitution, the values and principles, as I say, that underpin that. And I think the consistent theme throughout his career has been his efforts to ensure that judgments that he gives are located within the body of the Constitution and doing what is right for South Africans. So I think that's an element of how he will be remembered for his jurisprudence in particular.
So when listening to Zondo, it does sound like a man who's been reflecting a lot. How is his background and personal journey, in your perspective, from his early life, how has it influenced his judicial philosophy and approach to justice?
Well, I think, as someone who's come from a poor, relatively rural background, the challenges that he had to overcome, just to be able to study and then to go on to become a leading judge in South Africa over the last 30 years, has shown, that it's possible that with the right levels of dedication and commitment, it is possible for people from all sorts of backgrounds to ascend to the highest offices if the ability and the will is there. And I think it's an inspiring story or it should be an inspiring story for young South Africans from all walks of life, not just in the legal profession, but more broadly, to say that this is an example of how one achieves success without compromising on one's principles, one's integrity, and one's commitment to see that the rights of others are recognized and enforced.
But Zondo has not avoided some criticism, notably from former President Jacob Zuma. Let's speak to this. Some of the criticisms that Zondo has faced during his tenure. And in your view, how did he address or even overcome them?
Well, I think he stood firm. That obviously came to a head during the State Capture Commission of Inquiry when the former president refused to testify before the commission. The matter was taken up in the Constitutional Court, where the former president was found guilty of contempt and sentenced to a period of imprisonment. And I think, Justice Zondo stood by his principles in that regard, that in order to get a full picture of what transpired during the state capture era, he needed to hear the testimony of the former president. And when he was not presented with that opportunity, I think he felt that the commission was being undermined and that there needed to be accountability. So I think it's to his credit that he ensured that there was accountability, that the former president was held to account. and as a result of which he faced, strident criticism, often of a very personal nature, but he maintained his, his dignity through all of that and ensured that it was, the principles and laws that were foremost in his mind in terms of how he dealt with things. As a result of which the judiciary as a whole came under a lot of criticism with regards to its independence, the fact that it may have been politically biased and so on. And he took on those challenges head on and said, if there's any evidence of that, bring it forward and we'll deal with it. And no such evidence has come forward. So I think, the way that he dealt with that certainly has been of benefit to the judiciary as a whole.
Lawson, as we wrap up our conversation, with Justice Zondo retiring, what do you foresee as the key areas of focus, especially for his successor, Judge Mandisa Maya, in maybe continuing his legacy, but also taking on a new leaf?
No, absolutely. I think the challenges are huge, in as much as Raymond Zondo achieved in his career. And as I said earlier, he had a relatively short stint as the Chief Justice, but he began to make progress. And I think the tasks that face the incoming Chief Justice Maya are lengthy. She has to deal with the issue of the pressure on the courts, the delays in delivery of judgments, issues around court infrastructure, ensuring greater independence for the judiciary, certainly from an operational perspective in terms of the kinds of facilities in court buildings, the IT infrastructure to enhance the efficiency of judges, ensuring judges in all of the courts have access to adequate research capacity to enable them to deliver judgments more speedily. And perhaps, outside of the judiciary itself is the issues at the Judicial Service Commission, which, as I said earlier, Justice Zondo has made a start in terms of in enhancing its effectiveness, but there's a lot more work that Justice Maya will need to do as the head of the JSC, and I'm sure she will look at the steps that Zondo has taken and will seek to build on that in the coming years.
But going back to the state capture issue, how do you believe Zondo's work, especially at the state capture inquiry, how will it shape future legal and governmental accountability measures in the country?
Well, I think it brought a level of openness, the fact that the proceedings were televised over a long period of time, and it showed the value of investigations, of probing issues, questioning people who were involved. And I think therein lie lessons for not just law enforcement agencies, but for institutions such as Parliament itself. And as he pointed out during the course of the commission, that a lot of this questioning should actually have happened in Parliament in the years gone by, and may not have necessitated a state capture commission if Parliament, for example, had done what was required of it.
And looking forward, Lawson, what are the most pressing needs, do you believe, for the South African judiciary to especially continue building on the foundation laid by individuals like Zondo?
Yeah, look, I think it's for judges to, stand firm with their oath of office, to always put the law and the Constitution foremost, to enhance the efficiency of the way the courts function, to ensure that judgments are delivered timeously, so to the satisfaction of the parties, so that people are not left waiting for justice to be delivered. So there are, as I say, a myriad challenges that still await. But I think the legacy of Zondo is something that the judiciary can build on in the future.
Lawson, thank you so much for your time. This is CASAC's Lawson Naidoo sharing his insights into Chief Justice Zondo's career, but also speaking to his legacy as well.